On May 10, 2025, the winds screamed across Everest summit. A sacred promise began to unravel above 8,000 meters. Picture a Sherpa guide, Pauchen Tamang, trapped in Everest's death zone with an impossible decision. His client was dying, and the storm was closing in. One path meant honoring his duty and likely dying beside him. The other meant abandoning his oath for his own survival. He was out of time, out of options, and faced with an unthinkable command: save yourself. Will he abandon his duty? Welcome to Epic Tragedies, where this video and subscribing to the channel will bring you more gripping tales of survival and loss. The final dream. To understand the tragedy that unfolded, you must first understand the dream. Subrata Ghosh wasn't just a climber. He was a 45-year-old English teacher from Krishnanagar, India, whose life was defined by two passions: inspiring his students and conquering mountains. His family recalled a man utterly consumed by the high peaks. When urged to settle down, he had one quiet, unwavering reply: "Mountain climbing is everything to me." This was his life's purpose. A fiercely disciplined mountaineer, he had already summited 12 major peaks. His 13th, the one that would complete his life's work, was the greatest of them all, Mount Everest. He poured every rupee of his life savings and every ounce of his soul into this one attempt. This was truly more than a climb. His guide was Pauchen Tamang. For their community, the Himalayas are not a challenge to be conquered. It is their homeland. Guiding is a profession etched into his DNA, a role that demands he be part strategist, part rescuer, and part therapist. The bond between them was a pact built on trust. The client brings the dream, the Sherpa brings the skill to make it possible. Their shared goal was simple: summit and return safely. One man chasing a dream, the other doing his duty. No one could predict the brutal lesson the mountain had prepared for them. But even the most perfect dream can be shattered by the smallest mistake. And on the way to the summit, the first warnings began to appear. The warnings on the ascent. The first warnings for Pauchen weren't a single event, but a series of subtle, unsettling signs. Subrata was strong but painfully slow through the Khumbu icefall, conserving energy as if he knew what was coming. The rules of high-altitude climbing are laws written in blood. The most critical, the turnaround time. By 1 or 2 p.m., you turn back. Reaching the summit is optional, getting down is mandatory. But Pauchen saw a dangerous shift in Subrata, a single-minded obsession. While others rested, Subrata seemed possessed, overtaken by summit fever. Then they made a critical mistake. They started their summit attempt late. They left Camp 4 at 10 p.m., already losing precious minutes from their safety window. In the death zone, Subrata's pace slowed to a labored crawl. Pauchen, breathing raggedly, urged him faster. He knew the math. Every minute wasted was a minute lost for the dangerous descent. But Subrata, with the summit agonizingly close, would not be swayed. Reports said he was overexcited, waving off concerns. He had poured his entire being into this moment. Turning back was not an option. They pushed on, hours past the safe turnaround time. Finally, Subrata Ghosh stood on the roof of the world. He had done it. But the cost of their late summit became terrifyingly clear immediately. As Subrata's body began to shut down, Pauchen's role shifted from guide to rescuer. Oxygen was low, light was fading, and a storm was closing in. What happened next would cement both men's legacies in the mountain's brutal history. An impossible decision awaited in the heart of the death zone, one that would turn triumph into tragedy. Crisis in the death zone. The hardest part of climbing Everest isn't going up, it's coming down. Most climbers die on the descent, and for Subrata and Pauchen, that danger became very real, very fast. They had reached the top too late. Now they were trapped by darkness. The temperature dropped to deadly levels. The wind became brutal. Almost immediately, Subrata's body failed him. His legs collapsed. He fell into the snow just below the Hillary step and wouldn't get up. Pauchen was now living his worst fear. His client was dying, and they were completely alone. Subrata whispered that he couldn't see. This was a sign of high-altitude cerebral edema, ASE. His brain was swelling. It is a death sentence if not treated immediately. What happened next showed Palchin's incredible strength and loyalty. For hours, he begged and fought with Subrata. He tried to drag him down the mountain. After 4 exhausting hours, he had only moved him 100 meters. But Palchin was also suffering. He had been in the thin air for over 16 hours. His oxygen was almost gone. Frostbite was attacking his hands. He was no longer just a guide, he was becoming a victim too. Up there, no one can come to save you. It would take a dozen strong rescuers to carry one person down, and even that might not work. Palchin was on his own. His radio only made static. In the pitch black and freezing cold, he kept trying to wake up Subrata, who was now confused and unresponsive. Deep in the night, Palchin had nothing left. His oxygen ran out. Subrata was unconscious. Palchin understood the terrible truth. If he stayed, they would both die. Making the most painful decision of his life, he chose to leave Subrata behind. He moved his client's body to a more protected spot, said a silent goodbye, and turned to descend the mountain alone. This was not a choice to abandon him. It was a choice to survive. On Everest, you cannot save someone who is already gone. Palchin had made his choice. But his nightmare wasn't over. He now had to find his way down the dark, icy mountain by himself, fighting the cold, the exhaustion, and the heavy guilt of the friend he had to leave behind. The question was no longer about Subrata, it was about whether Palchin would make it out alive. Aftermath and a heavy heart. Palchin's return to Camp 4 was a nightmare. Exhausted, frostbitten, and shattered by guilt, he stumbled into camp at sunrise. His body broken, his mind haunted by what he had to do. He had spent over 24 hours in the death zone, much of it without oxygen. It took 2 days for him to even talk about the tragedy. He came down from the mountain carrying more than gear. He took on the weight of an impossible choice. News of Subrata's death devastated his community in India. He became one of Everest's statistics that season, a dream achieved at the ultimate cost. His family was left with an unbearable loss. Recovery of his body was discussed, but like so many others, the extreme danger and expense left him in the Everest's open graveyard, a final resting place for unfinished dreams. This tragedy forces us to ask painful questions. Who is really responsible? Climbers trust guides with their lives, yet guides often can't force a client to turn back, even when it's too late. When summit fever takes over, the guide is left in an impossible position. Should a guide not have the power to save a life? Palchin's decision was heartbreaking, but in the brutal logic of the death zone, saving one life is better than losing 2. This wasn't a failure, it was survival. Subrata's story is a warning. He was experienced. He achieved his dream. But he ignored the mountain's rules, his body's limits, and his guide's pleas, and it cost him everything. It also reveals the silent burden Sherpas carry. They are the backbone of the mountain, guides, rescuers, and often the only voice of reason. But when a climber makes a fatal mistake, it's the Sherpa who lives with the consequence. Everest will always draw dreamers. But without change, stricter rules, stronger authority for guides, better safety protocols, the cycle of ambition, tragedy, and loss will never end. Subrata reached the top of the world, but the mountain had the last word. This tragedy reveals Everest's brutal truth. No summit is worth a life. Subrata paid the ultimate price for his dream. Palchin survived, but carries the weight of an impossible choice. It's a somber lesson in humility, a reminder that in the mountains, ambition must bow to wisdom. We're left with difficult questions. Should a guide's safety decision be final? Could you make the choice Palchin did? We want to hear from you. Share your perspective in the comments. This is a conversation worth having. If this story moved you, like this video, subscribe to our channel Epic Tragedies, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next video. Thank you for watching. Until next time, remember, the greatest adventure is knowing where the line lies and respecting it.